Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator. Chapter 7, Talking with the Hoffersons. They landed just outside the village plaza. Hiccup stared down the street and knew what he had to do. He was not sure he would survive it, but he would not besmirch Astrid's honour by not going through with it. Hiccup dismounted and looked at his dragon brother. "I'm going to speak to Mr. Hofferson, bud. You can go and get some fish if you want." Toothless chuckled. "Not happening, brother. You and Astrid have myself and Stormfly as your chaperones from here on out." Hiccup said, feeling his cheeks heat up. "We know you are honourable, Alpha," Stormfly said, "but rules are rules. All young dragons seeking to court another must have chaperones from their flocks." Hiccup coughed. "I first have to speak with Mr. Hofferson," he said. "I don't know if he'll even give his permission." A fist cracked against his arm. He looked up to find Astrid staring at him, eyes narrowed. "My father likes you." "Liking me because I helped stop a war is one thing, Astrid. Liking that I want to court you is another." Astrid sighed and cupped Hiccup's face. "You did most of the work to stop that war, Hiccup." Hiccup opened his mouth, intending to protest. Astrid placed a finger on his lips. "No. I know what I did. I know what the others did. I know what Toothless and the dragons did. I know that you dictated everything. We wouldn't even have been there and on dragons if it weren't for you. And that war you stopped freed us all from a tyrant. But you're forgetting. My father liked you back in Gida's house. He punched Mildew when that old man said something about you, Hiccup. He's not going to say no." Hiccup sighed. "I don't know if I'll ever get used to people actually liking me," he whispered. Astrid grunted and pulled him into a hug. Hiccup laid his chin on her shoulder and wrapped his arms around her. He was trying. Every day he awoke, he had to remind himself that his village now accepted him. He had to remind himself that the entire last month was not a dream. It had been worse the day after he awoke, but it was easing. Slowly, 15 years of ridicule and being shoved aside did not magically go away in the blink of an eye. "I will keep saying I care for you," Astrid said. "I'll tell you every day that you matter to me. I know it will not erase anything you went through, but I hope it helps you." "It helps, Astrid," he whispered. "Please bear with me. Always." Hiccup lifted his head and smiled at her. She returned the smile. Hiccup leaned closer and nuzzled against her cheek. He stepped back. "Let's go speak to your father." Astrid purposefully entwined her fingers with his own. He looked down at their hands, then up at her, before looking at the village plaza. He turned back to her. Vikings love to gossip. If they saw Astrid holding his hand, he knew the news would spread through the village faster than a night fury could fly. Astrid stared at him and lifted her chin. "Let them see," she said. They walked into the plaza and crossed it, heading for the Hoffersons' house. Hiccup felt everyone's eyes fall upon them. Astrid squeezed his hand, and he glanced over and smiled. Soon they made it to her house. Astrid opened the door. Hiccup let her go ahead of him, and was certain she would release his hand. She did not. He stepped in and moved to her side, seeing Idis and Gida speaking in low tones to the left of the fire pit. Two of Astrid's 3 younger brothers were roughhousing in a corner on Idis and Gida's side. The third brother, a quiet 10-year-old called Torgir, had had the same temperament as Brynja, sat away from his brothers and sharpening a dagger. Hiccup heard the sound of another whetstone scraping steel and gulped. Brynja sat to the right of the fire, sharpening an axe. Hiccup felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise, and a spear of ice raced down his spine. Then Idis noticed him and hurried over. She hugged Astrid first, and Hiccup was shocked that Astrid still refused to let his hand go. He blinked when Edith hugged him as soon as she let go of Astrid. "Hiccup, dear, when do you want to start?" Edith said. "Start? Oh, the weapons training. Dad's letting us use the arena to teach Vikings and dragons to live with each other and not try to kill each other. We can start after the class, if you want. I'm not going to hold—" Edith's hands fisted upon her hips, and Hiccup's voice trailed off. "I promised, Hiccup." "Yes, ma'am. We can use the arena if you want." If he timed it right, then she could try to teach him after everyone had left. Less chance of anyone seeing how much of a failure he was at wielding any weapon. Less chance others would mock Ida for even trying. "Stop that." "Huh?" "Stop thinking you're going to fail. Stop thinking you are a failure. You're not. You never were. We failed you, Hiccup, not the other way around. But no more. I will never fail you again, and I'll make sure the rest of the tribe doesn't as well." "How did you know?" Hiccup asked. "I'm a mother. I've seen that look on all of my children's faces before." Ida sighed and looked down. She placed a hand on Hiccup's shoulder. "I'm sorry it took us this long to see it on yours." "You've already apologized, Mrs. Hofferson." Edith looked up and smiled, and then hugged him. "You are one of a kind, Hiccup, and that is a wonderful thing. Right, now then." She tapped their entwined hands, and her smile grew. She then turned. "Boys, out! All of you. Make sure the dragons all have water." Gyda stood. "I'll go with them, Mrs. Hofferson." "Thank you, dear." The boys and Gyda walked out the door. Gyda winked at Hiccup and Astrid as she passed. The two younger boys did not even look up. Torgir spied Hiccup and Astrid's hands, and his nose crinkled. Hiccup stared after him as the door shut, stung by the boy's reaction. He finds all forms of public affection to be disgusting. Edith whispered. Hiccup felt his cheeks warm. Edith smiled at him and then moved aside so he could walk further into the room. Hiccup took a deep breath as Astrid led him closer to her father. The man did not stop sharpening his axe. Hiccup gulped again. Astrid squeezed his hand. Hiccup straightened. With Astrid by his side, he felt he could do anything. It helped she refused to let his hand go. "Sir, I request permission to court your daughter." Brynjar continued to run the whetstone over the axe blade. Soon the only sounds in the house were the crackling fire, the scrape of stone over steel, and Hiccup was certain everyone heard his heart beating. He knew he did. Brynjar tossed the whetstone into a basket with more of them, and then stared at the axe for a moment before twirling it. "Daughter?" he asked, never lifting his gaze. "Yes." Brynjar grunted. He twirled the axe again before standing and placing it on a wall holder. He then faced Hiccup and stared at him in silence for several heartbeats. With a broad smile, Brynjar patted Hiccup's shoulder. "You have my permission, boy. She can do no better than you." Hiccup smiled. "Thank you, sir. I promise never to hurt her." Brynjar's smile fell. "Never promise that. You above all of us know how easy it is for well-meaning people to hurt one another. Just promise me you'll always work things out with her." "I promise." "Good lad." "Oh, you must stay for the evening meal," Edith said. I have to let my father know." The last few days notwithstanding, Stoic had gotten better at paying attention to where Hiccup was. Hiccup knew his father would worry if he returned home and Hiccup was not there. "Oh, he should really join us as well," Edith said. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I love this. Astrid being an MVP, Hiccup's utter terror, because I think the fear of rejection is one of the fundamental human fears. Edith being there to help him in weapons training and making sure that he's alright. Brynjar's intimidation tactic, and then seeing that Hiccup didn't break even though he was scared. Love that. And I will say this, because there are a lot of Viking names in here, I'm going to get them wrong because I'm reading them the way they're spelt normally, or at least how I can tell those sounds would be made. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.